So let's familiarize ourselves with Kubernetes terminology. Whenever you hear people talking about Kubernetes, most likely they will be using one of these terminologies in their talk. Please do not worry of having full understanding each of these components right away. It is not desired of you. Not yet. You don't have to learn the ins and the outs of each of these components right from the start. You should just first familiarize yourself with these names, and then we will discuss them one by one. Okay, so obviously we will start with the main component, and that is the Kubernetes cluster itself. A Kubernetes cluster, remember, it is made up of nodes or the server. They call the servers. They could be a physical virtual, they could be a physical servers, they could be a virtual machines, but they call them in Kubernetes terminology nodes. And some of them are called master nodes and some of them are called worker nodes. That's all you need to remember. A Kubernetes cluster is made up of nodes, and those nodes are called master nodes and worker nodes. And then we have a terminology in Kubernetes cluster called pods, P-O-D-S, pods. And then we have a terminology called replica sets, okay? And then we have deployments, we have namespaces, we have services in Kubernetes cluster, we have secrets, we have daemon sets, ingresses rules, we have cron jobs, we have CRDs, and then across this cluster we have a network, special network called virtual network, and that is actually span for K8 cluster, both worker nodes as well as master nodes. Okay, so besides that, there are certain components, there are certain processes. Those processes only run on a master node, and some processes run on a worker node, and some processes run both on a master node as well as on worker nodes. So some of those processes, those run only on master nodes, is called API server. Remember that the Kube API server, or they call this API server, that is the gatekeeper of your Kubernetes cluster. Anything, any client, either it is coming from internet, from a command line, from a programming perspective, scripting, they have to come and talk to API server. And that API server is the gatekeeper, the main component of master node. Then we have container engine running on master node, and the same container engine also running on the worker node. That is obvious, because of this container engine we can run applications running on the containers. Now remember that why we have a container engine. You can ask this question, like one of the major the known container engines, Docker. Why we have this container engine on master nodes when all the applications running inside containers will be running on worker nodes? And the answer is, these API server could be running as a container itself. So in order to API server to run inside a container, we need to have a container environment. Then we have a component called controller manager. It manages different controllers. We will have a detailed talk about controller manager. We have a kube scheduler. We have a etcd. Etcd is a key value storage. That is the everything, all the objects of a Kubernetes cluster, they actually are saved in a database, and that database system is called etcd. Okay, and then we have something called kube proxy. Kube proxy run on a master node as well as on a worker node, or you can say that kube proxy run in each and every node of the cluster, and it has to do with the networking. We will have a discussion on that. Then on the workers nodes, obviously we have a container engine, that is a Docker, or we can have some other, but we will use Docker for now because this is a very known one and it is available. So another one, it is very, very important on a worker node, is called a process kubelet. Remember this name, kubelet. It is also called a node agent. Any communication from a worker node to a master node to this API server or anywhere, it happens through kubelet, this process that is running on worker node. Okay, so overall terminology of Kubernetes, don't sweat on it. Just try to familiarize yourself with these terminologies. As we progress along, we will have each of these components discussed, and we will have a demos of these components also.